so she came to visit. For further context, check the bot to read my previous post, as this is about the same situation. I'm splitting up this saga into multiple posts because she was here for a week and we saw her almost every day, and a lot happened. This post only covers the first half of the week and it's incredibly long. Consider this your fair warning that I did not edit this post as aggressively as the previous one, so it's long. Quick reminder of our cast. Me, 35 FTM, wife, 34F, mom, 63F, and her siblings, 65M, 68F, stepdad, 59M, deceased. Adding to the cast this time is Mniel, 70F, FIL, 61M, BIL, 32M, and boss, my boss at work and kind of a work mom type, 40SF. Her brother ended up staying and helping her for a few days until she made him leave due to the hurricane. She seemed okay being alone after he left, still very distraught, but we didn't get any more dramatics quite as insane as that first day. My aunt, on the other hand, completely flaked out. She never showed up to stay with mom as she said she was going to. Not that she's obligated, but don't tell me you are and then not do it. And we didn't hear from her until almost the last night of mom's visit here. But my uncle was able to stay with her long enough to handle stepdad's remains, get the death certificate process going, help her find a lawyer, etc. He definitely got her putting one foot in front of the other, for which I'm really grateful, and apparently he was only minimally a snarky asshole about it, which is a big accomplishment for him. I will say that it sounds like the people dealing with my stepdad's death in official capacities kind of sucked. Assuming she's a reliable narrator, she's mostly been treated like she should have expected this to happen because he's been in poor health for a lot of his life. And that is true. My stepdad had been, alternately, a transplant patient or an end-stage renal failure patient for half of his life. His kidneys just failed for no reason one day when I was 6 or 7. Those things are hard on the body and had caused additional problems. But he was actually in very good health for him. When someone is chronically or terminally ill, there's kind of this idea that their death is imminent and inevitable. But if you've actually lived with someone like that, you know that there are upswings as well as downturns. And if someone dies in the middle of an upswing, it's just as unexpected as if they were healthy. So doctors and lawyers and counselors and stuff have just been like, but he was sick, when like, yeah, okay, technically true, but not really. Also like, even if he had been on a decline, do they think that is helpful? Anyway, surprise, Southern State fails to show compassion when someone actually needs it. So anyway, what we ended up saying to mom about us going there was, we spoke to wife's doctor, and he said she is not cleared to fly yet, nor is she okay to be alone overnight, so she can't travel and I can't leave her. She seemed to be understanding about my first priority being the family I've built, saying that she did the same thing, prioritizing me and stepdad many times. I got a chance to speak to my boss about it too. My boss is a very kind and caring person who is fully willing to let any of her underlings just sit in her office with the door closed and BTCH for 20 minutes if we need to, about work or about our non-work lives. She obviously has reasonable boundaries about this, but I've talked to her about wife's surgery and about my starting hormones, finally, and how stressful life has been recently. I ended up taking a day of bereavement leave from work just to be sat on my own, so she knew about what happened, and she asked if I was okay and if I was planning to go home to help out. I explained the situation to her more or less as I did in my last post, and she also said, I think you're doing the right thing not going, and I know you feel like you're lying because your wife could probably travel and not die, but I would have been really worried about someone in her state traveling, so I don't think you should feel guilty about using that excuse. So it seems like pretty much everyone with an objective view thinks I did the right thing not going, and that helps a lot. So she came here. She landed on Saturday night, and we hung out with her on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Since I work full-time, my wife mostly took on the work of entertaining my mom during the weekdays, for which she is amazing. These first 3 days mostly passed with only minor weird mom comments. She was broadly okay. Tuesday, I got dramatically ill. I ended up spending about 12 hours in the ER, 6 hours wait, 6 hours in a room, with severe digestive symptoms, 10 out of 10 painful stomach cramps, and severe diarrhea. My wife's theory is that I have some kind of diagnosable inflammatory bowel disease, and that stress induced a worse flare than I've ever had before. Test results didn't find any type of food poisoning or other obvious cause. My only test result that was abnormal is an inflammation marker, so it proves that I was genuinely in pain and something really was happening, but is diagnostically useless other than not faking it. They didn't do any imaging, which I assume is a cross between no test results suggesting I needed it and the fact that it was 11:30 and I was crying like an overtired toddler because I just wanted my own bed. My mom kept asking if I needed anything or wanted her to come, and I didn't give her my location because I knew that managing her feelings was just going to add to the pile of shit I was dealing with. Side note, I still have not actually recovered from whatever the FCK was going on here. The ER sent me home with a prescription for anti-stomach cramp medicine and instructions to eat a bland diet and see my doctor if I still had symptoms in 7 days, and I will be making a doctor's appointment tomorrow. The pain is much better. It was peaking at a 10 every couple minutes and now peaks at about a 5 every few hours. But the other symptom has not changed, and I really cannot live like this LMFAO. Even if my symptoms do magically resolve, which would also seem to support the theory that it was stress, I really need to find out what the FCK is going on so I know what to do if it ever happens again. Wednesday night was family dinner. My mom got to meet the rest of my wife's family for the first time. I work with my BIL, and on Monday he had said, "So I heard, State, came to you," and we talked about it a bit. At one point he commented, I was going to say like, "Oh yeah, looking forward to meeting her," but then I remembered this is the woman we were worried about locking you in a f***ing basement, so now I'm looking forward to it for totally different reasons. I mentioned that we would probably be no contact, except we're still partially financially dependent on her. We'd survive without her, but it would be harder. And he was like, "Yeah, I totally get that, and I'm not going to be the one to jeopardize that. So I won't like pick any fights on purpose, but I'm definitely going to be blazed out of my mind and watching the show if his wife decides to." I'm not gonna lie, I was also highly looking forward to the family meeting her because I knew they'd see through her bullshit, especially my MIL, who's an angel. My MIL has known me for 4 years, and she's been a better mom to me than my own ever was. We have our points of friction and we've been mad at each other, but I don't think I knew before what it was like for someone to actually love you unconditionally and to be able to be mad at you without making you doubt whether they love you. I remember that when we visited my mom in 2022, we got off the plane and I started crying so hard I couldn't do anything else as soon as I saw MIL, and she just hugged me until I could gather myself enough to get in the car. I also cried from stress one time while we were discussing needing financial help, and once she established that there was nothing specific she could do to ease my feelings, she just put tissues in front of me and sat with me until I could stop. Where my mom literally cannot handle any kind of emotional expression from anyone, she has to leave the room and will be weird about it for days. Did you know it's actually possible to talk or otherwise function while crying as long as you're not trying desperately to stop crying? I didn't until the age of 34. So anyway, dinner transpires. Mom didn't trigger any big fights, but she did this thing she's always done which I hate, and it's subtle enough that most people don't notice it, but it drives me up a wall. She didn't talk to anyone but me all night, and then as soon as I was ready to leave, she would not stop telling stories and talking. I'm standing by the door with my shoes, bag, and sunglasses on, and now is the time to chat for 20 minutes. This is one of those things that sounds like nothing or a mildly annoying one-off, but like, it's all the time. I find it so hard to explain why my relationship with my mom is so bad because it's almost all tiny shit like this. Except it's dozens of tiny things a day, and that's a lot harder to explain than big dramatic stuff. My wife texted MIL after, "She had her human suit on pretty good tonight," and MIL answered, "She did." But I can tell from her conversations that she's all about herself. She's very narcissistic and very insecure. She told wife to tell me that she sent her love and sympathy. She's not a big texter, but I have a feeling that next time I see her in person, I'm gonna hear some thoughts and feelings. Anyway, this post is already hellaciously long and not much drama happens in it, but I thought it was important for the backdrop against which the rest of the week occurs. I guess I also just kind of want someone else to know about all this bullshit and tell me that they see why I am so reluctant to spend time or be around her. Next time. Mom repeatedly suggests activities that are a ridiculous idea for someone suffering uncontrollable diarrhea, behaves worse than my wife's former nanny kid did as a 4-year-old, and gets mad at my wife for buying something for herself the day before she gets mad at me for asking her to buy me something.